to Twin Talks with Owen and Ryan. The name of our podcast is Twin Talks because Senor French and Mr. Kuhn got our names confused last year in U.S. History and Spanish 3.
I'm not Owen, and my topic is about how the state governments and the national government should choose between sending kids back to school if it's deemed safe or not.
And I'm not Ryan, and my topic is about how we should go back into sports during these COVID times. Get straight into schools. Ryan, what's your opinion on this?
So my take is that without us being in person in school, is that school feels so much more optional, and then you don't feel like working as hard basically. So I feel like some people are struggling from that lack of having a teacher to help you or just keep you on track. And then also not as noticed aspect would be supporting small businesses like Sandwich Odyssey, for example. Like how I'm sure they rake in a bunch of money from kids coming to get food at lunch. And I feel like they're losing a lot of business right now with us not being in school.
Yeah, I totally agree. I go get Sandwich Odyssey before practice a lot of days, and that's a steady stream of income for them. I'm sure most students do that.
Yeah, because I go with you.
Yeah. We should go back to school, but what would the environment of school look like during COVID times and before we have a vaccine?
So if there's no vaccine, they'd still have to take precautionary measures with wearing masks, social distancing as best as possible in classrooms. And then if a student doesn't feel safe, they want to request one of those divider things that we saw at the vice presidential debate. They could put in something like that if it just made them feel more comfortable, because that's kind of what school's supposed to be. It's the comfortable environment for them.
How would you get the information to the students who are doing online if they don't feel comfortable going to school?
If they're still uncomfortable going to school, you could do recorded lectures where you place them in OneNote or in Teams or something like that, and kind of roll with the online system with recordings the same way that we're doing it now. But then I still feel like a lot of people would be more interested in going back to school. But even if I feel like it wouldn't be that much more for teachers to still record their lectures for kids who aren't comfortable yet.
Yeah, I totally agree. The only hard part is some students aren't able to go back to school because of health concerns or health concerns within their family,
Yeah,
where it's like an automatic
that
death.
was something that Jay Inslee had said that if people are they got some underlying health problem that would be a concern for them.
Yeah, so those people could just be optional, you're saying?
Yeah, they could take more precautionary measures and they would have more of a choice if it wasn't safe for them.
That makes sense. I totally agree. What are you going to do if someone tests positive for COVID within your school?
I mean, it's a pretty complicated situation, but they obviously have to go through a shutdown of 2 weeks, because if people are at risk or they've been put at risk basically for catching COVID, that they would have to have immediate quarantine testing, so they make sure that they didn't contract, that they have no symptoms, and then also there would have to be a testing system in place. I was thinking every Friday after they leave the building, so they could get the results back on Sunday so they know if I have coronavirus, I wouldn't be spreading it to people the next week during school.
Yeah, I totally agree. Do you know where the funding would come for that?
It's a little complicated, but I think after these tax breaks that the current administration has just imposed, I feel like just paying a little bit in taxes towards funding testing and just safety measures for people in school would be super helpful for the people that they have to work their jobs, and they have to how are they taking care of their kids? That was what main concern I had for younger children not being in school, is that the parents, if they're working a 9 to 5 job and they're not going to be able to take care of their kids, how are their kids going to raise themselves home alone? So I feel like paying a little bit of taxes would shows that we really want this vaccine to come along. We want to get back to our normal lives, as well as basically getting back to our normal lives.
Yeah, totally. And a lot of things have been shut down and are affected by COVID. So in order to get that back on track, that would help a lot of different things.
Yeah, vaccine's pretty key to getting back to our normal lives. There's not really another way that we're going to be able to just have normal lives after this until we get our vaccine, or it just goes away. But I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, because the virus is always changing. As I read in the article, it's kind of like the flu where it mutates every single year.
Yeah,
So they're either gonna have a yearly virus or a yearly vaccine,
yeah.
or have to figure something else out.
That was like a biology thing where it like doesn't have the code that changes, so it like latches onto the cells differently or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that was interesting. Well, unfortunately, there's always the risk of dying from COVID-19. Have you found any statistics on that if we were to go back to school?
So I was looking at the CDC website. So like their median group was 18 to 29-year-olds, so young adults, college kids, and the hospitalization rate for 5 to 17-year-olds is 9 times lower, and the death rate is 16 times lower. So basically, according to this CDC is saying that elementary, middle, and high school kids have the lowest rate for hospitalization and death out of any age range. So they are
Yeah,
the least at risk, and like as their like bodies are like growing and stuff, they're like their immune systems are kind of like kicking in. They're doing the most important stuff.
yeah,
I
that
mean, I'm not
makes
like a
sense.
medical professional, but I'm just pretty sure that's how it works.
This statistics also includes people with like asthma and breathing disabilities and other like impairments like that. So like if those kids were optional to go back to school and could just stay online, I'm sure the statistic would go down if you didn't include them.
Yeah, exactly. It would probably be even lower if they just had like the healthiest of healthy, but it wouldn't be super accurate then.
Which that'd be a good reason to have online school as an option as well
Yeah,
as in class
just for
school
safety.
for safety reasons. To enforce students wearing masks in school.
Well, it's tough because there are definitely people who are going to disagree with the science of masks and whatnot. But basically, you would have to do something like you sign a contract and be like, you want to be in person, you're going to have to respect people and wear your mask properly, or you're just going to have to do online because like it'd be just such a pain basically for people just like disobeying the rules and like making people feel uncomfortable as if they're like at risk or something. And also, I have something pulled up from UC Davis where like their health department where it says that wearing masks and social distancing reduces the risk by up to 65% because it creates like this effective barrier against the droplets, which is like the best way for coronavirus to spread. So just doing that would help prevent it a lot. And just again regarding like the whole, if you don't want to wear it, there's not really much we can do because this is like totally new times, but it's just important that everybody feels safe in school. So that's just kind of the contract is kind of the only way to get that done.
Yeah, that makes sense. Would teachers enforce these rules, or would it be like some sort of resource officer like they already have in place?
I mean, yes, the teachers and the resource officer obviously is probably going to be the best way, but just kind of reporting to administration if someone's not abiding by the rules. But I feel like the teachers and like the resource officer like they could do it, but also like it's up to the students. Like if they don't feel safe or feel comfortable, like they have to speak up and voice like their concerns basically.
Now, would students like receive some sort of penalty if they did not wear their mask or didn't wear it like properly?
That is also like how 3 strikes out or like immediately as soon as you screw up, like you're gone. That could be like specific things in a contract or something. Like I don't really have something coming off the top of my head, but there would probably have to be something where it wouldn't be immediate because like you'll learn, but also like you can't just keep getting away with it. Like safety is just priority for the school basically.
Yeah, you could do something like when I was in middle school, they had like if you got like a certain amount of like lunch detentions, there was a bigger consequence. You could do something sort of like that where like if a student gets a certain amount of like reportings or like being seen without a mask a certain amount of times, they are like sent home for a certain amount of time and then they
Yeah.
get like a second
And so
chance
like
later.
they have to be judged fairly. Like you can't, you're innocent until you're proven guilty basically. Like
Yeah,
there
you
ought to be
can.
a system in place for that where so you can't just report something. Like there has to be some evidence behind it.
Yeah, someone has to see them without a mask or
Yeah.
some sort of
I
thing.
mean, in this day and age, with kids with their phones at school, it'd be easy enough just to snap a picture or something.
Yeah, true. That'd be a good way to do it. That just
Yeah.
invades on their privacy.
We got to switch it up on you because another controversial topic returning back to school is sports. Feeling about like returning to play for school sports or competitive sports like as a whole?
I believe like all sports in general should be back just because with like COVID, you're outside and like just being outside like lowers the risk of getting COVID. Like from my own personal experience, I've been at club soccer and we've been doing like 5-person practices, and then as well as just this last week, we went to full team practices with contact. But from personal experience too with COVID, one player on my team came down with COVID from work. Somehow he got it from some like other source. And even though he still went to practice, every single other person on my team tested negative, which is like, I think that's a really good sign just because that means the chances are lower. And like, if it happened for my team, hopefully that's going to happen for most cases just because you're outside and like trying to social distance
Like
as much as you can.
it's harder to spread like when you're not like because like with practice you're not standing next to each other all the time. You're not like breathing each other's faces even with contact and stuff. And like there's not going to be like as much of a risk basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like the coaches really enforce like during water breaks, walking in separate groups and not like standing right next to someone. Cause like the main way how people come in contact and like get COVID is by standing next to someone or like breathing in the same air for up to 15 minutes. So like most of the time, even with contact, you're touching them for like a couple seconds and then it splits off.
Yeah.
So that really lowers the cases and like chances of getting COVID.
Yeah. Talking about sports, like you're using soccer as your example, are you just talking about lower sports, or like are you talking about all sports returning to play?
As of now, Governor Jay Inslee, as of now, October 23rd, 2020, Governor Jay Inslee has allowed low-risk sports to be back. That includes, like, soccer, as I play, tennis, volleyball, and, like, other sports just like that. But I think all sports could come back because, like, even soccer, you have like a lot of contact, but that's considered a low risk sport. Whereas like sports like football, you could figure out some sort of way to have like mask coverings or some sort of thing like that in order to get them back in
There
play.
was like I saw something like on my Instagram a little while ago. They had like the full face visors for like
Yeah.
protection for football.
Yeah, and that basically acts as a mask for football players, which is a really good option.
And they were taking precautionary measures too, just like all the other sports that are trying to return to practice right now.
Yeah, I totally agree.
More to sports than just practices. Like, is there games returning as well, or what's like the plan with returning to play?
As Governor Jay Inslee has stated, and how I believe it should be, there's a certain like max amount of COVID cases that county can have. So as of now, it's 75 COVID cases per 100,000, which I think this is a very fair number, and like I would probably keep that. So if your county is under 75 per 100,000, I would allow games to happen in between those counties. However, if as of game day you have more than 75 cases, say a county even has 76, then you're not allowed to play just because that is deemed unsafe and it's a risk.
You don't want to, like, even if the team has traveled all that way, you don't want to put them at risk to bringing COVID back to their county or something, or spreading it between the team.
Yeah, that's totally right.
Yeah. Precautionary measures you have experience, but like with your team, but what would like measures the immediate like process be if someone contracts COVID on like your school team or your club team?
With my team, what happened and what I believe should happen, is that person, once they're tested and they get their test results back, every single person on the team is alerted and are required to go get a test very, like, as soon as possible, as well as since Corona has, like, an incubation period where you could technically still have it and not show symptoms or even get a test result back negative, there's a 2-week, like, quarantine after the person is tested. So that's just necessary to slow like slow how many people get it and how many people you interact with outside of sports.
No question. Like, how would you regulate like the down periods? Kind of like how are you gonna prevent like people like coming close to each other, coming in contact, all that stuff.
So in times like halftime and like when you get subbed off and put on the bench for some reason, my idea is that all students should wear a mask during those times, whether they have some sort of thing like tucked in their sock or like a gaiter which just goes around your neck when you're not wearing it. students could wear something like that, and then when they come off the field, they just slip that over their face in order to protect them from spreading droplets of corona if they do have it. Similar to what Ryan said, from UC Davis, a statistic, this lowers the chance of getting corona by 65%, which is like, that's a really solid amount. So that's just a necessary precaution that we could have for times like halftime and like group huddles and like anything like that when you get subbed off.
Yeah, building off of that as well, like what happens if someone gets injured on the field? Like what precautions could be taken? Like obviously, do you have if you have trainers, the trainers have to be like masked up and stuff, or if like the coach comes out on the field, the referees come to check on you. Like what should be the initial protocol for like dealing with an injury? Like
Uh,
obviously you have to tell if it's serious or not. Like if it's like a serious injury or something.
as far as dealing with injuries, like usually if a player gets injured on the field, they'll like, from personal experience, you can signal to your coach if you need to be like helped off by the trainers or whatever. So like, say this does happen, those trainers will wear a mask, as they like come over to the person who's injured on the field, and like even just like taking them off, they could like hand that person a mask of some sort, or even like put it on for them just to have another necessary precautionary measure of some sort. Conclusion, both me and Ryan believe that both school and sports should be back to full capacity with COVID restrictions, obviously. For various reasons, we need school and sports back in our daily lives.
What the? We just have word in. Patrick Bamford scored a hat trick, and I left him on my bench for my fantasy team. Oh my freaking god! This dude was a little bum. I don't know. That's so annoying. He scored 15 points. He's on my bench for
That
fantasy.
is
I play some
unfortunate.
bummy Aston Villa center back that got negative -3 points for conceding 3 goals to freaking Leeds United. That's so
Oh,
annoying.
unfortunate.
Vamos Chelsea.
Thank you for listening to episode 1 of Twin Talks. Have a good day. See ya.